Rahubat, Moisa, Rahubat family, as we say. We've got another 3 questions that we're going to address today. So remember, you can always send your 3 questions by filming yourself to osmvision.wetransfer.com. All right, so you film yourself with your phone. Obviously, try and get the best quality you can, good lighting. And then once you're done with your 3 questions, you can just upload them to osmvision.wetransfer.com, and then we'll get those questions answered for you. All right, let's go on to this person's questions.
Hello, this is Masinde. I'm from Kenya, but sending this video from Pretoria, South Africa. The questions: 1. Is Hermes Trismegistus back on Earth? And if so, in what form is he existing? And if he's back, why is he back? And also, who is Hermes in relation to the Anunnaki story and the lineage? Where does Hermes connect to all of it? I'll take that as one question. Second question.
Okay, before we go on to the second question, the first question is, who is Hermes Trismegistus, and is he back, and where is he today, and how does he relate to the Anunnaki story? All right, so yes, he is back. We did a video previously on Tahuti and Thoth, who is the same person you're referring to. And he is a being that is referred to by different titles, by different names, throughout different times and throughout the scriptures, okay? Because he keeps reincarnating, and he comes with cycles to renew our story, to give information that helps when you're going through this transition that we're currently going through now, where people are referring to it as the sun cycle, okay? We're referring to it as the Aquarian age, the golden age, and cycles, because time travels in cycles, okay? And, even when you look at it in its simplest form, when you look at what you're calling time, with the slowest or the smallest amount being a second, all right? A second goes round and you get 60 seconds, then you get 1 minute, then you have, you get a lot of minutes to give you hours, you get 24 hours to give you a day, you get many days that gives you a week, you get many weeks that give you a month, you get many months that give you a year, you get many years that give you, what we would call, a jubilee, etc., till the point where you get 24,000 years, which you call an equinox. Then you do another cycle of 24,000 years, and you call that an epoch. So that's just to show you that time is going round in cycles, because every day there's a new day, there's a new week, there's a new month. And so when you're talking about the beings that were here from the beginning of what you call time, because there are different time zones, different calendars by different cultures. Not everybody goes by the Gregorian calendar, which we're using today, which started in 1 AD. Previous to AD, you're dealing with BC or BCE, before the Christian era or before Christ. So that's just to tell you that time is based on the culture, is based on the time belt that you're using. So our planet, according to the scientists, rotates around the sun, and one rotation gives you a year. But because it fluctuates, so you get, sometimes is, even though we say 365 days, it's actually sometimes 364 and a bit. So you get, the leap years, and you get the time savings that you get where, the summer solstice goes to the winter and so on. So just saying that to say that the concept of time is based on what you've been programmed with. Because if time is based on the planet rotating around the sun, our sun, then what happens if you're on another planet? Because remember, in this solar system, they used to say we had 9 planets, okay? And then later on, it was discovered that there were 10 planets. And then later on, it was discovered that we have 11 planets when you're counting Titan as a planet, okay? So I'm saying that to say that each planet has a different distance away from the sun, which means that its rotation will be different time periods that it will take it to go around. So when the Earth is the third one, right? When third or sixth, depending if you're counting from outside in or from inside out. So if it's third, can you imagine how long it would take for a planet that is 7 or 8 away from the sun? It's going to be a wider orbit, and it would take longer. All right, so that's the first thing about time, because as the brother said, when you're trying to put the pieces together, the confusion comes in by trying to figure out what time period we're talking about, number one. Number two, what language we're using when we're breaking words down and describing things, all right? So, and then number three is the culture and the context, because if you get these three right, then you're more accurate in being able to put the pieces together. So the being you're referring to, in terms of when you go to the Anunnaki story, you would refer to him as Ningish Zida. And he is back now in the personage of Dr. Malachi Z. York, all right, who is the incarnation of Tahuti. Because when you're saying Hermes, that's just the Greek rendition. And when you start to deal with Romans and Greeks, you're using different words. So he's known as Tahuti, he's known as Thoth, he's known as I said, Ningish Zida. He's known by many titles, because these titles are given by the different cultures or the different languages. He's known as, you know, the being that people refer to as Murdoch or Marduk, the being that the Christians refer to as Michael, and in Islam they refer to him as Al-Qadir. You know, so there are many, these are just titles. And when you start to translate the titles, as I'm saying, in the languages, Mikael in Arabic is who dares to be like El. The El is referring to the being that was referred to as the Most High, which is, you know, Anu. And then you get the El becomes the Elohim or the Elohim. And when you're dealing with the Elohim, you're dealing with a group of beings of which you have someone over them, like Enlil and Enki, who become, you know, Yahweh, and that becomes agreeable or disagreeable, Tob and Ra, depending on the language, which becomes, as you see, Enlil being over the skies, Enki being over, you know, the planet, which, you know, Enlil becomes Baal in the Bible as well. So the first thing is to establish what language. And then the second thing is, when you translate in that language, you get a meaning. Al-Qadir will mean the green one. You know, so yeah, first thing, establish the language, establish the time period, because, you know, the planet has been here for millions and millions of years. And the rendition that you have in terms of the monotheistic books, like, you know, the Torah, the New Testament, the Quran, these are Abrahamic religions which only go back 6,000 years. But the planet's been here for millions and millions of years, and you have different cultures that have been here for thousands and thousands of years. So depending on where you're going to find out who we're talking about, you're going to get different names and different translations. All right, so he is back. He's here to bring in this new cycle. He's referred to as the Son of Righteousness in the Old Testament, Malachi chapter 4, verse 2. And in the New Testament, he's referred to as the angel Michael, the archangel. He's referred to as Melchizedek, Malachi, Zodok. And again, Melchizedek was who Jesus was made after his order as, you know, the prince. And Melchizedek is referred to as the king of Salem. Salem becomes Salam, which is peace. So many people were after the order of Melchizedek, which is known by many titles too, like the Ancient and Mystical Order of Melchizedek, which Jesus was a part of. Jesus was also a part of the Essenes. This is where the Essenes are that spiritual order where John the Baptist was a part of, and the tablets that were found known as the Qumran tablets, where a lot of information was revealed that was not in the in the New Testament, and which give you a lot of other information about what happened in that time period. So, to answer your question again, he is the being, none other than Paanabab Yanun, as Dr. Malachi Z. York. And when we say that, he is a triune or three beings in one, which is, the physical being, the person everybody knows as Dr. Malachi Z. York. But then you have Melchizedek, you have, like I said, Yanun, and he's known by different names like Ningishzida in the old scriptures. So that's who he is. He's here, and you can sup with him. We love him. He's more than what people will call a god or a messiah, because again, these are terms, are religious terms, where a messiah is to somebody that's anointed or to wipe clean or to, be prepared to then take on a mission and to do certain works. So yeah, the language is the problem. That's why we teach everybody our language, which was the first language, Mispatia. And a lot of people trying to figure it out, like you say, you've done a lot of studies, you've done some research, but in putting the pieces together, this is what he has come to do, to set the record straight and clarify information. That's why he's known as the master teacher, because he taught us pretty much every subject and walked us through these different religions, teaching us the languages. Anyone who's read any of his scrolls will see that he teaches you the languages in the scroll. So if he's breaking down something from the Bible, if it's a New Testament, he will give you the Greek. If it's the Old Testament, he gives you the Hebrew. If it's the Quran, he gives you the Arabic. And then he gives you the transliteration as well as the mistranslated version, like the King James Version, which is popular. And so he's here to clear things up and to put the pieces together. So before he could give us what he came to give us, and he said this up front, I come giving you what you want so you would learn to want what I have to give. And that was Wu-Sabat, known as Wu-Nuapu or Wu-Nuap, Nuapu. And but we weren't ready. So he had to do this thing of teaching us and taking us step by step, because we kept asking questions about religion. Much like now, what we're doing now, because some people will be like, why are you still teaching religion? It's because we've doubled back to pick up new souls and some people who left or that have missed out information, because many people dropped off during the different schools. And now they're hearing Wu-Sabat and they're trying to tie the pieces together, but they're caught up or they might be behind and they've been stuck in the old school. So when we got to a point where he was like, right, there's no more time. We've covered 30 years of everything you want to know, right? But now it's time, because it was allotted a specific time period from 1970, the opening of the seventh seal, to the year 2030. The first half hour from 1970 to the year 2000, that was teaching us and giving us all we want. And that included all the Anunnaki stories. We walked backwards because he came originally giving us Wu-Sabat, but we didn't want it because we kept asking questions about religion. And then he said, okay, put it aside. It's going to walk you through. We covered Sufism. Then we went into the, as the Ansar Allah community. And he taught us everything to do with religion, going backwards. So we covered all Islam, covered the New Testament, covered the Old Testament, covered Egyptology. We covered the Anunnaki stories and the Sumerian doctrine and Egyptology, and then ended up going right back to Wu-Sabat, African spirituality, which is now from the year 2000, he started to give us. And coincidentally, because they knew that the liberation of our people and of humanity in terms of, uplifting us, religion wasn't going to do it. Religion only takes you so far. But the minute he started to teach Wu-Sabat 2002, he was kidnapped in 2002. So he started teaching Wu-Sabat in 2000, and 2002 he was kidnapped. But he has continued and has taught and has put out more information. All right. So let's go on to the second question. Sorry, I'm saying that to say that people that are trying to put the pieces together, yes, you come across us or some old information that the master teacher has put out. I say old, but it'll be new to somebody if it's their first time coming across it. And then you have to work your way. And the best way to be up to date is to join our communities, to join our Telegram group. Yeah, that's going to be in the comments. Join the Telegram group, because you have many student teachers that are up to date that didn't go away or fell off or are behind. They've kept with him and followed the Lamb wherever he goes up until this point. Me being one of those student teachers. So we are happy to help clarify things for people so that they can come up to date. Right, question 2.
Is I've been doing my research for over a decade, so these things about the Anunnaki and aliens, and not aliens, the Anunnaki and the giants and everything, it's not news to me. The only problem that I've always had is trying to make the connection between different things. For example, sometime this year, while I was sleeping, I had a vision, like I saw a being which looks like one of the Anunnaki. It was a black male figure. He appeared to me for like half a second, urging me, like I was in a state where I was going to like pray in tongues like while asleep. So the figure appeared to me and just urged me on to like be confident and go for it. And I actually experienced praying in tongues, and it was out of my control. So I don't know what the connection is between things like that, like me experiencing myself praying in tongues, which was beyond my control, and the Anunnaki, like where does that even, what's the connection, like how do you explain that?
Okay, so the second question is relating to his experience of a being appearing to him, and he said, well, whilst he was having the vision, and then he started to pray in tongues, etc. All right, the first thing we would say is that personal experiences, dreams, visions, etc., they're your personal experiences, and no one can deny that you had an experience. And you have to pretty much, what the master teaches us, you have to pretty much work it out yourself. However, we are also taught that, you know, we beings can, in different dimensions, beings that can send messages and mess with you, with your mind, in terms of you can also project things. We have a scroll called projection and reflection, where you can store a lot of images and things in your mind's eye, in your subconscious, and then they can replay at particular junctures, right? So when you have an experience with a being, I mean, he said this being was like for 30 seconds, which doesn't really allow you the time to, I guess, have a conversation with the being, because when people say a being came to me and then they come to us and ask us, who was this being, you know, et cetera, we are like, why didn't you have that conversation with that being? Ask them questions like, who are you? Why? What do you want with me? Where are you from? Just have a conversation. If obviously some people might be afraid or whatever, and their adrenaline kicks in and they're cut off. But I'm saying that to say that if it's not some kind of illusion, or you're not creating this yourself from your mind's eye, then find out. Because the same way the master teacher has appeared to us, or when he gives you his story of when Yanun, you know, appeared to him, he was able to, over time, have a conversation and ask him questions, and he didn't realize that Yanun was going to fully emerge in his being, and then he will be able to answer questions or he could ask him anything. Anytime he asked him a question, he'll be able to give him the answer. So sometimes people will say beings appear to me. If you don't know who or what these beings are you going to follow them? Are you going to go with them? Because you know that we teach the food for God doctrine. So some beings may have some malevolent, objectives. So you have to know, are they agreeable? Are they disagreeable? Are they in your family line or not? So you have to know, are they honorable? Are their motives good or bad or agreeable or disagreeable for you? We already covered the point about, the Anunnaki. When you say you saw it, how did you know it was an Anunnaki? But also, when you say that you were speaking in tongues, we know that speaking in tongues is something that people misinterpret, because that whole incident of speaking in tongues in the Bible, in the book of Acts, is talking about the ability to be able to speak in other languages. So when the disciples were being sent, according to their records, they were able to be given the gift to speak in tongues, which is lasan. And it's saying that you're able to go somewhere that you don't know the language and be able to just converse with the people in their language so that they could spread the word. That's what speaking in tongues is. What people are saying speaking in tongues is today is called gibberish. When they're speaking and uttering tones and saying things, yabba yabba, whatever, and they don't actually know what they're saying. That's not communication. Because if you're communicating with somebody, then they need to be able to hear you, you need to hear them, you need to understand what you're saying to each other. Like I'm communicating with you right now in this dialect called English, and you can hear and understand what I'm saying. But what tends to happen with these incidences is disembodied spirit beings and beings that never took on the body. Because when you're talking about beings that were cast down here, a lot of people know about the Nephilims in Genesis 6 verse 4, but those beings, and then people also know about the 200, they say 200 fallen angels. A third of them was cast down, right, which is 300, but 200 are the fallen angels that came down and they had sexual intercourse with the females and produced offspring. 100 of them were cast down too, but they were trapped or not allowed to take on flesh. Yeah, so they're more like spirit beings who can still procreate or multiply. And in the Bible, this is known, his name was asked, Jesus asked him and he says, I am Legion, right? Legion is where you get the word religion, and you get the word legions, and you have, them also able to multiply in what people are calling spirit bodies. Because remember that there are beings that can exist as just spirits only, disembodied spirit beings, all right, that don't have a soul. And there are beings that have spirits that are walking and physical that still don't have a soul. So you have spirit beings that will try and possess people. And this is what he's talking about when they take over your body or try to fuse with you, because spirit beings don't have bodies. So they need a physical body to utilize to experience things in the physical world. And when you beckon on them or call them using their tones, so, like for example, Jesus is a person they say was here physically, and he died and he was crucified and he gave up the ghost. And if he's no longer here in the physical body, then he's a ghost, and ghosts do multiply. And so when people are calling on these beings in churches, a lot of times you have cemeteries around the church or very close in the vicinity of the church. And these spirit beings, when they're called in churches all around, the world every Sunday, they do come and try and fuse themselves with your physical body. And this is where you get that whole thing with people dropping on the floor, foaming in the mouth. They're, shaking and speaking what they're calling speaking in tongues, which is really, as I said, is gibberish, because you're fusing an entity with a physical body. It makes you start to utter all of these sounds and convulsions, etc., etc. So that's what happens for that brief moment. There may have been an entity that, utilize your body or try to speak through you, and you are saying these things. And a lot of the time, people then go to they don't understand it, they don't understand the experience, what's going on, so they will go to their pastor or to their minister or to their religious leader to say, I had this experience. And then more often than not, they will make up something and interpret it for you and tell you it was the yabba dabba do or whatever they were saying means this or means that. But where's the proof? Where's the evidence to substantiate what they're saying? All right. So that's what that is. I hope that's answered that question. Let's go to the last and final question.
Yeah, and my third question is about death. When human beings die, like there's very many versions of things that happen to us, like to our soul and our spirit. How does that connect to the creation story of the Anunnaki and the gods? Like, as human beings, who are we in, like, where do we fall, or who are we in the context of creation of the universe and the Anunnaki? What's the connection? Yes. Yeah, I have so many more questions, but those will do for now. Thank you.
Okay, so that third and final question is, it was quite a lot. It's like death, who are we, what are human beings, creation of the universe, the Anunnaki. This is where the confusion comes in from these monotheistic religions and the chaos and the misinformation that has been fed to people for thousands of years, for 6,000 years to be exact. And it was more concentrated in the last 400 years, from, the 1600, and it was by design to confuse people. And today, the master teacher is here. Parnabab Yanun came to clear up all the confusion. And so this is what I was saying before, that when you're talking about any subject, we have to straighten it out. Are we talking about the universe? Are we asking a question about the universe? Are we asking a question about creation? Are we asking a question about the Anunnaki? Are we asking a question about us? Because it was a lot, and that's where the confusion comes in when you just jump around. So when you say the universe, the creation of the universe obviously is something that till this day scientists are trying to figure out, and they're looking backwards, because a universe is something that grows and expands. And so if it starts off just like we do as babies, you start off small and then you grow and you expand. But to really pick out and know your origin and where you started from and how you came about to grow to be who you are today, you have to go to the origin. And if you're dealing with us as humans, you're going to go back to, you started off as a sperm from your mother, and then you were grown in the stomach of a sperm from your father and grown in the stomach of your mother. But then you have to go back to, okay, where did that sperm come from? And how does life start on the planet? So you're kind of walking backwards, right? And you will go back to a point where we weren't even on the planet, but the planet was here. And there were other beings existing in the waters before coming onto land. And then you then go back to, okay, well, where did the planet come from? And the planet goes back to being something that was a part of another sun, and that sun exploded to form the planets in our solar system. And then you go back into, okay, where did our solar system come from? You go back to the galaxies, and then you go to the universe. This is one universe. And even before you get to the universe, you're looking at the different galaxies, all right? So we are in the 18th galaxy. So you're counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 18, and then there are other galaxies beyond that. So the 19th galaxy, where Yanun comes from a planet called Risk, the 19th galaxy known as Ilion, all right? There are other galaxies. That's just within one universe. And then there are different universes. He mentions and teaches us about the 7 universes in the Holy Tablets. So when you're talking about where did we start, where did we come from, you have to bear in mind that life forms existed in different galaxies, different constellations, right, within those galaxies, like Orion, Sirius, Pleiades, Arcturus. You can get a star map and see the various different constellations within our Milky Way. And so people want to know, where did we start from? If you're talking about on the planet Earth, this planet was seeded in different ways. You have something called panspermia, where, bacteria are brought here by way of meteorites, or planetary bodies that, come here and germinate the water. And then you're talking about how far back you're going and which origin we're talking about, which people, which extraterrestrials, because there are so many different extraterrestrials, and each one has its beginning somewhere else. So when we say beginnings, not beginning, because everyone is obsessed with the beginning, because the biblical accounts or the Quran or any religion on the planet, they start off with something being created or put into form. And you have to ask yourself, where does that start? And it starts beyond what you're calling the physical. Even when you look at it from a scientific point of view, you will have the beginning in the periodic table will start with hydrogen, then helium, etc., to give you all the elements coming to the physical side where things are quantified, or they have a sum, right? And the hydrogen previously been thought to be the smallest, but now with more technology and the breaking down of atoms and going to subdivision of the atoms, CERN are still doing that today. They're continuously trying to find, well, what's the smallest element and how did that come about? Because you have to get to that to know how it grew to be what it is today. But the more they subdivide the atoms, they get quarks, zeelis, biaps, etc. And the more they do that, they keep subdividing to a point where it keeps going. And now they're using, certain telescopes, the James Webb, which is the most advanced at the moment. Prior to that, it was the Hubble telescope. And so they keep looking back in space, keep looking at the beginning of how the universe started. The further they go, the more it eludes them, all right? Because the darkness that surrounds the multiverse and, the omniverse is continuous, and is surrounded by ether. Some try to dispute that ether exists. Some say it does, and they're trying to find out what holds what you're calling darkness, because even at the speed of light, you're trying to get to the perimeter or the rim of the darkness, and it never ends. But they know that something is limiting the speed of light. Okay, so that is taught to us by Pana Babyanun as ether. And this is where you get the nine ether or natural ether energy. And this is what scientists are still trying to decipher today. But being an intelligent being, being a being that has 76 trillion years of knowledge, sorry, I'm gonna have to cut it there. Cut. 76 trillion years of knowledge means that, he's got so much to teach us. And unfortunately, people have to catch up, because we should be asking questions of the hereafter doctrine, which is Wu-Sabat and what he came to give us, which he started to from the year 2000. And, but we have to upgrade and catch up quickly so that we can start to ask questions about, the galaxies and where we're going as intergalactical beings, things like teleportation, levitation, things that, people are starting to delve into, astral projection. But a lot of us are still caught up in the Anunnaki stories, which really is the beginnings of the Bible and religion, because these Anunnaki came here, and that was prior to our ancestors as the Panatharu, who came here first. I was kind of going to touch on that. So that goes back to them seeding this planet with their DNA by way of the dolphin, by putting that capsule inside the dolphin, which was originally on the planet Meldic before the crash or the accident with Nibiru, and the beings that were living on Meldic, who were beings in the water, and those the dolphin was then seeded on this planet. After, at that time, obviously it was known as Tiamat, and so when the dolphins or the Vulcan beings came here, when the waters, the capsules dissolved, and life germinated in the waters, which was the humanoid form that then came onto water. And you go back to the ancient Egyptian stories, they tell you about these beings known as the Ogdoads that were in the waters, and they give you the story of them being like, snakes and frogs. And with a tsunami, they came onto land. Some of them were thrown by the tsunami so far away from the ocean that they couldn't get back. Some went back. There were many species, many civilizations on the water, and the ones that couldn't come back, they had to adapt and live on land. And the ones that were in the waters, you had like Enki, which is part of the Anunnaki, the son of Anu. He terraformed the planet. There were many on the water cities, Rainbow City. There are many projects that were being taken care of by these Anunnaki because they were mining the gold, and they were finding the work very difficult. So, and there were wars between Enlil and Enki. The story is actually so big and massive. So when we say, who are the Anunnaki, who are we, where do we come from, how's the universe formed, there's so much information that we teach, and you have to read the scrolls, you have to read the books, the books, the scrolls by the master teacher, Partner Babyanun, which covers, from say the year 2000 going backwards to 1970, all that information dealing with religion and so forth and so forth. And then from the year 2000 coming this way to 2024 now, you get, the hereafter doctrine, which covers the master secrets, because he has secrets that nobody else on the planet has that he's teaching us, and the actual facts, which are things that you can research, find, and confirm by way of evidence, reason, and experience. Then you have our way, which is our culture, the new culture, for this hereafter, and that involves you learning the language so that you can use the right tones, vibration, and frequencies and call on the right beings. It covers everything to do with our culture, so that's where you have to catch up onto and then continue your development, because he's still here, he's still teaching us. And Wu-Sabat's the future. So I hope that's answered your question, but most importantly, join our Telegram group, because sometimes, we touch on different aspects, but you want to go into detail specifically about a particular topic. Because when you ask a very broad question, we just jump around and give you information. But when you ask a specific question on a specific topic, in the Telegram group, we have many student teachers that can give you more detail, and then we obviously refer you to the books. So the ones I will refer you to today is the spiritual you after the physical you dies, because that covers what happens to you, where you go in terms of the different realms, and if you have a soul, you can go all the way to the 9th realm and beyond. If you don't, you're limited to certain aspects. And the question would be, why don't you have a soul? Because depending on what you've done, as in some beings are restricted based on their vibration. And so if you can only vibrate to a particular point, you can't go beyond that, because it's about the resonant frequency as well that you can tap into. And you have beings on different realms that do mess with you or play with you or want to utilize you for their own objectives. This is why, we teach you how to, basically, when you say praying, what is that? Who are you talking to? Because that's a communication, and you need to know who you're calling on, because it's a tone, it's a vibration that, you know, if it's resonant to you, it will connect. So yes, I hope that's answered your question. Join our Telegram group and we can elaborate if we haven't answered your question. And anyone else who would like to ask their 3 questions, remember, film yourself. You can use your mobile phone, get good lighting, and once you've finished asking your 3 questions, upload them to osmvision.wetransfer.com. Okay, until the next time, Wadu.